I'm not going to say hello guys again. I always say that. So I'm going to say welcome back everyone to my channel. This is Stefan Persson, also known as Imphenzia. And I'm doing another update here after my surgery that I had. So if you've been following the last few videos, I had my collarbone repaired here. So I've got a nice scar right across, but that's pretty good. I've got a big titanium things with 10 screws now. So I think I'm not really allowed to move this for 4 to 6 weeks so much. So I have to sit and do my stuff a little bit on the side. However, that's going to work. But I think I can rest my arm actually on the table, and that counts pretty much as if I'm wearing the sling thing. So I think I should be still able to do some things, and I managed to tweak a little bit. I've been working on that platformer game. So if you've followed any of my Twitter posts or my last video as well, where I showed a little bit, there seems to be a bit of interest in this platformer that I'm making. So I'm going to put some more time into it and play around with it. So basically, in this video, I'm just going to show, I haven't really been able to do so much more than play around with this platformer guy. It's not really a guy, a platformer thing. So, and I've been trying to combine some of the stuff that I've done in the recent months with low poly art and my character animations, as well as the modular spaceships and things like that. And I've even thrown some things back from the old Beatball era in 20 years ago with some blocks. So I was going to show you a little bit. I've got the Unity project loaded here, so I'm going to run through a few things that I saw some of the comments that were showing some interest in. So I'm going to try to let this hand go now. Move it over to the keyboard here. And let's have a look. I've got the project loaded here. So what should we do? Let's do a little test run first of all. So if I press play here, and let's bring it into full screen. As you can see, I've got my character here running as I did before. And this time I've got these traditional blocks here that I used to have in my Beatball games, the Breakout or Arkanoid clones. So, and I find it quite funny to just shoot these things. As you can see, I should really turn on that sound actually, so I don't record that. There we go. So I can just shoot these blocks, and as you can see, I've implemented a little, it's a shader feature as well to make them wobble a little bit when you hit them. And if I switch to the minigun, you'll see them a lot more. And I really like that tactile feel to the things, and that can really only be achieved in a good way using a shader. So I can show, actually let's run over here as well, and then just let's smash some of these up. This feels so good, you wouldn't believe it. And then you just go through here. You just have to make sure you don't destroy the floor that you're on. And then let's send a grenade or two in here as well. Boom, boom. That's a lot of fun. And then here's the spaceship as well. I'll show you that. So I built a low poly modular spaceship this time, and if I jump into it, I had a little animation I quite like. This is quite fun as well when you have the minigun and then you just shoot under it. You see the flashes from the muzzle, so that's quite pleasing as well. And I mounted a big minigun on the spaceship itself, and I got some plasma cannons here on the side, and the wings are folded down at the moment. I implemented a hinge module here. And if I jump into the spaceship, you'll see what happens here. Basically, it closes the cockpit and sends the spaceship flying here, folds up the wings and sends it off. I was thinking maybe I could integrate that into the game of having a double genre type of game, but I don't think maybe that's necessarily such a good idea. If I can't even get one genre to be fun, maybe I should just focus, as someone said wisely so in the Twitter field as well, or in the comments, that just focus on getting one thing fun first. So fair point, I'll take that up. And but I'll show you, here's the spaceship in my scene, and as you can see, it's separate modules, but instead of going with the UV texturing that I did before, I simply used plain the UV mapping of having simple colors and mapping those to different elements to get a much more cleaner look for these spaceships. The texture, UV texture or diffuse maps wouldn't really work in a game like this since everything else is low poly. So yeah, all of this are different. I can go into this game object here. You can see there's just a few different modules like this that are assembled into the spaceship. And here's the minigun. Oh, that's just here's the Gatling gun. And here's a plasma cannon as well that I put in. So we'll see if this makes it into the game somehow. Maybe I'll have it as a transition, or maybe I'll actually turn these type of ships into boss enemies or things like that, or convert them into big mechs that or robots that you meet, maybe some end bosses or things like that. And so what else should I show? A few things that I've shown interest in. To get the haze effect, I've cheated a little bit. I've got these transparent panes of... I've got an asset in the asset store, in the Unity asset store, called Gradient Skies. So I just modified that a little bit, and it generates, based on a gradient, it generates a mesh here that throws up these simple quads. And then I've layered them to get multiple effects. And then I've got a big solid one at the back here as well. And then these mountains and the skyscrapers here I just modeled in Blender as well. I can show you those. Let's bring Blender up as well at the same time here. So I've got Blender loaded. Let's see, open. Here's the, let's see, here are the spaceship modules all lined out. So as you can see, simple modules like this. Took maybe a couple, three hours to make these or something like that. I'm quite happy with the way they look, and for all the cockpits I did the interior as well. Let's see if we can find one here. Let's hide all of these. So let's just, maybe there's a nifty, if you know of a shortcut how to hide all of these in, actually I know that myself. You press the H key and it hides everything, so no need. But if I take a cockpit here, 0, I did it in two. First of all, I've got the, actually I'll show you this. This is just a solid cockpit as is, so if I'm not planning to open it or anything like that, you could just use this one. But I've also included here then, let's see, the base here. And if I rotate this one around the x-axis here, then I modeled so that the character can sit inside here as well. And I also did a little seat here. Let's have a look at that. Cockpit seat. Oh yeah, here it is. And then I also have the guy sitting there as well, so I can see that everything worked. So if I close this one again, rotate around the x-axis, you can open and close. So that should work anyway. What else? Oh yeah, the skyscrapers here. So let's discard those and load the buildings here instead. And here are the different skyscrapers that I modeled. And I've got some footage of this recorded as well. I might throw up some really simple. It's just a matter of selecting a bunch of faces like this, extruding them, doing Control R to do some loop cuts, scaling, Control R, using the mouse wheel, E to extrude, S to scale it down, did something wrong there. There we go. And then also in the shading here, in the UV, if I select a bunch of faces here, like this, and let's say we wanted to have this green sci-fi look as well, so I hold the Shift key, select multiple faces here, press G, and then on the left side here, and I just change the texturing. So that's pretty much simple as that I create this. I like that one actually. Cool. Never mind. Let's close Blender and go back into the Unity project. And if I disable this here, the sky panels, this is what the game looks like instead. So I think the haze does quite a lot to add the feel to it. So I could probably do a night scene or something like that where you don't have the haze, but I think it really does add. So if I enable the sky panels here again, this is the difference that I make. I think it makes a huge difference actually. To get the blurry background as well, I'm running 2 cameras. So I'm sorry for the mess in this project. It looks terrible probably. It's just prototyping, throwing all sorts of assets in there. Left structure and sanity to aside. I'll tidy it up later maybe. Since I'm not selling this as an asset, I guess someone wrote once that you don't have to write pretty code to make a fun game. So I guess the Unity project doesn't have to be that tidy if I'm working on my own. But maybe one day I'll tidy it up a little bit. I should do. So I've got 2 cameras as well. The background camera has got a post-processing to get this. I'll show you. That's the depth of field. I decided to run that solely on the back camera. I tried to get it to work properly by having depth of field and keeping the center field here in focus, but that didn't work out so well. It kept blurring a little bit of the play field even if I tried to set the focal ranges and things like that. So I ended up just creating a background camera, slapping the blur on that one, and then on the foreground camera I have a different post-processing, but that's a different profile, so the only thing that does is to add the bloom that you see if I do shoot the especially the minigun here, you'll see that around the muzzle flash and also the explosions and things like that, there's a nice aura around it, and that's the bloom effect. I also see some of the bloom down here on when you get the light here as it reflects, and I put a pink type of sci-fi. I don't know why that looks sci-fi, but I think it's back from the 80s when you had the cyan and magenta, whatever it's called, the color. So I like that feel. It feels a bit spacey. Okay, what else should I talk about? I've got a few things running in the background, and that's the waterfall and the trees here, and I can show you those as well. Let's just gonna change this a little bit. Camera preview we don't need. So these I modeled as well in Blender. These are just modular blocks of hills, and I've layered those as well into 3 different layers. And then on top of those, I've put some low poly trees, and they sway in the wind as well. And that's another shader effect that I created using the Amplify asset. It's a great shader editor. And I can run through some shader stuff as well if anyone's interested. What else? I should show the waterfalls here as well. Someone mentioned those. And let's scroll down to background. Let's say it's still in the background here. It's not the sky panels, it's not the mountains, it's not in the near. I think it's a separate here waterfall. Let's go for the big one here. Double click to get to that one. And this is a particle system, believe it or not, but I'm using an icosphere mesh. So just a real quick run through of my set. As you can see, it comes from absolutely nowhere. It's a magic waterfall. I like magic. But for the player, it doesn't. It makes no sense that it comes water from here, to be honest. There's no hill or anything like that, so it's purely for the look of things. But I guess it's not so natural with floating panels and floating islands and little things like this, tiles in the air. So I think I get away with it. I should do. But let's have a look at it. It's a waterfall particle system. It's emitting from 60 particles a second. It's running about 300 simultaneous particles here. I think the particle system is optimized enough. Oh, ran out of battery. Right, guys, I'm back. Camera cut out, battery ran out. That's the issue. I have to get a power supply for my, I'm using a GH5 Panasonic camera. I'm happy with the camera, but the batteries, I was wondering why they sent me 2 free batteries when I bought it, and it's probably because they got fed up with having to deal with people complaining all the time. So they went ahead and sent 2 extra batteries just to be kind, or save their own back, I guess. So let's get back into things. Let's see, I was talking about the waterfall here, and it's a particle systems, and it emits 60 particles per second. And if I run the simulation here, you can see that it's got about 300 particles at this same time. So I think this is why I'm not going to put this game to mobile, because it's going to probably waste a lot of CPU power and burn people's batteries. Speaking of batteries, burn the batteries up for people. So, and that's just these particles. I've got the clouds are running particle systems. When I shoot things, particle systems. And instead of using just a simple quad sprite, I use, here's the magic for this one. It's a mesh, configured to mesh, and the mesh itself, it's an icosphere, as you can see here. So it's got 20 triangles, 60 vertices. Or maybe I should do a tutorial on this one day instead. What else do? I rotate these particles over time. Let's see here. Rotation by speed. So I rotate the particles, as you can see, a little bit over time here. I change the size over lifetime according to this graph here. So they grow up here, fall down, and then they just shrink away to nothing. And that's out of view anyway, so you don't really see when they disappear. And color over lifetime, I've got a gradient here set up. And it's basically simulating that you get the white water at the top where it goes over the edge, and then it turns into blue, and as it fades into to a mist, then it goes white again. And they change a little bit where they change, because I've got here random lifetime between 4 and 6 seconds. So that's why they're not identical. If I were to change this to 4 and 4, they all look the same. But I like the way it randomizes the little things, so keep it like that. What else? Oh yeah, the shape is just a box that emits from behind here to the appropriate width. And then here's, I guess, an important one as well. I have a gravity modifier of 0.5. that adds the gravity to them. If I had 0 gravity, they would go like this. They'd fly up for some reason. Oh yeah, because I've sent the initial speed up here to 20. But let's keep the gravity modifier because water is falling downwards. And then here on the limit velocity, here's another important one. If I don't have that, you see this massive cascade waterfall. Maybe I should have that, so you have to run under a waterfall at some point. Maybe that would work. But I limit the velocity over time down to the speed of 1, and then I have a damper of 0.04. I had to just mess around with these values a little bit to get the thing to fall. Again, I just played with there's no science to this. I just played around with the values and got the look that I wanted. So what else should I show? A little bit of someone also mentioned the platforms. They bounce a little bit when I jump on them, as you can see here on the single, not on these ones, but on these platforms. Boink, they shake a little bit. And I'm not actually changing anything to the game object itself. This is a shader that I developed using, I mentioned before, the amplified shader editor. And I can show you that one. I used that for my blot game that I did for Ludum Dare 43. And here, tile part, no, not that one. Tile part shaker. So here is, I don't really have time, I guess, to go through everything. But it takes a few things in. It takes the shake origin, which is where there's a collision identified. So if I jump with my character here, basically when there's a collision registered in Unity here, boink, on my character, it knows that a collision happened for this character in this part of the world or at these coordinates. So I bring those in using this shake origin. So the shader knows that somewhere on the scene there was an impact at this region. And I use those values, and I also take the shake range, and it's set to 5 by default, so 5 units, and shake magnitude, how much the tile should shake. And I use these values, and in the end, according to this graph, I change the local vertex offset. So funny enough, you wouldn't believe it, but all of these tiles are capable of shaking right now without adding any CPU or GPU power. It's basically shaking the tiles all the time, but they're not shaking them at all. But the shader is actually running through the process of shaking everything. So I could basically, without any performance difference at all, I could shake everything, all the tiles here on the screen. And I actually do the same for these blocks here. As you can see, when I shoot these, they have a shake to it, and it adds a big difference, I think, to the way the game feels. That little shake really makes it feel like you're hitting these things, and it makes it really satisfying. That's the word, to shoot these things. And I can bring that shader up as well, and you'll see that I basically just copied the first shader that I made, and I did a block shake shader, and it's using again the shake origin, the shake range, and the shake magnitude, and then it does some magic in the spaghetti machine here to bring that into a local vertex offset shake. And the reason why I've copied these and done it 3 times, it's because it's capable of, since the bullets are firing a lot faster here, you might want to have multiple impacts affecting tiles at the same time. And I'm using an array of values for the shader, so it always sends 3 values in, so it's capable of doing 3 simultaneous shakes at any given time. And that's why it's duplicated into 3 sections, and basically it just adds all of these offsets together. And in a weird way, it's quite crazy, I think, but if I had the screen full of these tiles, and the GPU is basically performing all the math to shake all of these at the same time, and it works really well, and I think it's quite performant compared to if I were to do shake all the game objects individually by changing the transform and having that in the traditional way of moving something in Unity. That would be really have a big impact. I actually did a video on that I never released that showed the difference if I were to detonate explosions among tiles in a beatball type of game or an Arkanoid clone. I had a big profiler running where it showed I'll put some clips from that on the screen here. You can see how much difference it made when I had the GPU doing the shaking instead of having the actual game objects shake within Unity itself. So the shader stuff, it's really worth learning. It's a bit of a steep learning curve maybe, but it really has you, or it makes it possible to make these quite nice tactile feels to it. If you've played Fortnite or anything like that, when you hit with a pickaxe, It's not an axe, whatever it is, the tool, hammer tool, axe tool. That uses a nice shader effect as well to have everything wobble when you hit it, and it's I think it's really important to get that feel. And you could have these tiles as well when you bump your head in them. Well, it's like a sort of a Mario type of thing where you just have the objects, maybe you have a mushroom here flying up. Maybe not. Not so innovative. Here as well, a bridge. That one's running hinge joints thing. See here? So it's just simple hinge joints. These can space out big time if I were to shoot on these. Sometimes I get some weird physics bugs that I've tried to eliminate here. It's a bit tricky that it goes all, especially with the ragdoll, it can go crazy. Let's see if I kill myself here. With some grenades, maybe I can get this to freak out a little bit. If I can even kill myself. Seems to be... Oh, here we go. Ragdoll. Oh, he can still aim. Interesting. If I resurrect him here now. Oh, it seems to work. This is one of these annoying things with the physics. Sometimes you get into these things the computer can't really sort out the way the ragdoll should be. And if the physics flips out, and I don't really want to release a game with jittery physics like that. And it only happens every now and then, so it's a bit frustrating, but maybe I can iron it out. Okay, what else should I show? So the guy is running around here. Got some different weapons here. You can duck, stand up, shoot. He reloads. A shotgun. Energy weapons. Oh, I hit myself here. Oh yeah, this is quite funny as well. If I've created some different ammo types. And for this minigun here, for example, if I were to change, if I add force back one here on this ammo for the minigun, this is quite cool as well. Then he basically gets pushed back as he fires, as if it's recoiling. So if you push forward, you're fighting the force here. And then I had to disable the force downwards, so it's only pushing him back, because otherwise I could do one of these jumps and it just sent him flying straight up in the air and way above the screen. So it was too powerful. Maybe I'll implement so you can do some sort of a minigun jump. Maybe that should still be possible to some extent. If I were to add the force even more here, let's see, 4, what happens then? I haven't tried this. Let's see. Oh, he runs back. Whoa! I can't even push forward. Woo! Okay, never mind. I should change this back to 0. There's a few things that you can change for the ammunition here, and that's force back on this one. This is a light ammo. So I've got a bunch of different things. It cycles through different sound effects when you fire it. You can change different volumes and pitch ranges and things like that. You can send off sparks here when the bullet impacts. And the number of ricochets, that should be possible. Some trail effects, the amount of damage and energy. So it's quite simple here as well. If I were to go on this minigun ammo and I change the velocity here to maybe 500, and let's find the weapon here as well. It's on my character here. Let's go into my character. Is that the right one? Yeah. Spine. Minigun here. I can change the rate of fire. So if I were to run only at 500 here, you can see that it shoots. Bullets fly faster because I increased the velocity, but it rotates faster. And then you can see the minigun here is spinning as well. So I've implemented a thing where you can, let's see if I reduce this one down all the way to 200. You can change the spin up duration and spin down duration. So if I do 2 seconds and 2 seconds here, you can see it takes 2 seconds to spin up, and then it takes and it adapts the rotation speed based on the number of rounds that are fired every second. And when I release the mouse, then it spins down. If I were to spin up, it starts shooting, I release, and then I press again, it spins up. So basically it takes the RPM, or rounds per minute, and it calculates the spin up and spin time for that. Let's reset these back. 500, 1600 rounds. You can go crazy with this as well and go really big, but I'll let you try that in the game later on when it's released. Well, maybe just a quick few other notes to mention. The ragdoll effect. I'm using something called Puppet Master here, which is an asset available in the asset store. I really recommend this one. It's a guy called Root Motion, is it called? I think. And it's I think it's a Finnish guy, and he does some awesome stuff when it comes to inverse kinematics and ragdoll stuff. So I actually have two of his assets running. One is Final IK that does the inverse kinematics for the movements, and it adds the possibility to do the aiming here, as you can see. It's that asset that enables me to aim anywhere, and it also allows me to switch the pose when I come up to the edge here. And I look down over the ledge here. Let's see. You can see that he switches his pose and holds it overhead instead. I can't do that with my arm, but and then if I move here, it transitions into a mid, and if I go up above, then it switches to a different pose as well. So this is a really good asset, the Final IK. And then for the ragdoll here, if I were to press K, actually kills myself here. K, it just does a nice ragdoll effect there. Oh yeah, so what I'm doing now is I'm gonna actually, I like this idea of these blocks, so I think I might still have some sort of an element that you shoot these things to collect some ammo upgrades, since I've done the weapon system quite modular. Someone mentioned a game called Metroid. I think I've never heard of it before, but it seems to be going crazy with all the weapon upgrades, and it's an old game that's come out in quite a few different versions since then. So I'm gonna look a little bit more at that and get some inspirations. But basically I think it's going to have the ability, as you can see, I've got this glowing core inside these blocks, so I have an idea maybe that could give you some points or energy or something like that, that when you reach a different threshold you can upgrade. I'm not quite sure how to do the upgrade stuff yet, but I'll play around with it a little bit. I think I'll also have the traditional platformer stuff, like a time limit, and then the objective is to reach from the beginning of the level to the end of the level, obviously. And I think the levels are going to be quite short, but many of them instead. So you get a sense of progression. And don't think I'm going to do too heavy with different puzzles to solve. I guess that's one route to go, where you have to push this button, do this, pull this lever, do this in order for that to open. I don't think I'm going to go that way. I think I'm going to do more ramping up the challenges, the enemies. I've modeled mech enemies, and I'm going to do some animated enemies that you face. So I think I'm going to focus a little bit more on that and your ability to upgrade your weaponry, and have them maybe some power-ups as well, where you get ×2 or 3 or 4 of bullet speed, or infinite ammo for a short period of time. I think the target platforms would be PC, maybe some sort of a console or a Switch. I think I could modify the version to run on mobile, but I'd probably have to go ramp down the visual fancy stuff with all the post effects, the blooms and things like that. But I really like the way that adds to the game now, so I'm going to keep it in for now and make something that runs on a more capable platform for now. Alright, that was it for this video. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please hit the thumbs up and put some comments in the comments field below if you have any questions or thoughts about either this game that I'm making, if you have got any ideas for it, or if you've got any questions, or if you have any ideas for tutorials that you want me to make, or if you want me to show you anything about the stuff that I do, or give me a shout anyway, and I'll do my best to sort it out. Till next time, enjoy your summer, and I'll see you soon again. Bye! Now that it's summer and everything, if the sun's shining and it's annoying you, just close the blinds, invest in some nice blackout blinds or something like that you can pull down, get all those reflections out. I'll do the trick. Helps with the conscience as well, then you don't feel so bad about being inside. One thing that bothers me with my childhood, that I should have spent more time playing games instead of wasting it being outside. Okay, let's get my strap back on here. That's what it looks like.